I'm Sam, and I'm an OpenSciEd teacher and facilitator. Today, we're going to be going over Bath Bombs Lesson 5, and this is my favorite lesson in the whole unit because we get to bring in our own experiences and the students' experiences that they have with gases in their everyday life, and we get to play with fire. I mean, who doesn't like to play with fire? So, how did we get here? In lesson 4, we figured out that citric acid and baking soda, when combined with water, are the only substances in a bath bomb that are causing the bubbles. We also figured out at the very end of the lesson that the substances or the gases in the bubble are not one of the substances that we started with. So naturally, the students are wondering what gas or gases could be coming from the bath bomb. Let's take a look at a lesson at a glance to see how are we going to get our students to answer this question. This is a 2-day lesson, and it's an investigative lesson, which means they're going to be hands-on, both demonstrations and investigations that the students will be doing. In order to figure out how to set up these demos and investigations, there are videos on the OpenSciEd website. And if you're not allowed to have flame in your classroom, I totally understand. There are student videos or student-facing videos on the OpenSciEd website as well that you can show in your classroom. On day 1, you're going to begin by eliciting students' prior knowledge about gases that they have experienced in their everyday life. We're going to earn the words density and flammability as properties and add those to our word wall. We will then give the students a list of 10 common gases found in our everyday lives. We will begin testing some of those gases for the properties of flammability and density, as well as then testing the gas from the bathroom bomb for flammability on today. At the end of day 1, you will have students make predictions as to what they think might happen when they test the gas from the bath bomb for density. On day 2, they will actually test the gas from the bath bomb for the property of density. They'll then go to their notebooks. They'll write in their progress trackers, based on the property test of flammability and density, which gas or gases they think could be coming from the bath bomb. They'll bring their ideas to new group members. They will practice arguing from evidence together. And then at the very end of the lesson, we will have the students take a summative assessment by constructing a written argument about which gas or gases they think could be coming from a bath bomb. So we figure out some really important things. The first really important thing that they figure out is that density and flammability are properties. Make sure those get on your word wall. Students also figure out that in high concentrations, gases that are non-flammable will extinguish a flame. They'll figure out that gases or liquids that are less dense will float upwards when surrounded by gases or liquids that are more dense. And gases or liquids that are more dense will sink downward when surrounded by gases or liquids that are less dense. That is a key model idea. And they will end the lesson by figuring out that the gas from the bath bomb could be carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and or argon. Here are some key moments to really focus in on as you are teaching this lesson to help your students to be successful. The first key moment is in part 3. In part 2, you gave your students a some common gases data table. We begin by testing air and helium for the property of flammability. Based on the some common gases data table, we know the outcome, but scientists always test to see if the outcome matches what actually happens, or what it says in our data actually happens as the outcome. So we test, we find that the air maintains a flame. We test, we find out that the helium extinguishes the flame, and we finally finish by testing the gas from the bath bomb. Once the students test the gas from the bath bomb, you ask the students to return to their seats and eliminate all wrong answers, which gases are not coming from the bath bomb based on the test of flammability. What's really key about this is that we want our students, just let them do it on their own. It is okay to be wrong at this point in time. Whatever they think, let them put that on their paper. On day 2, in part 6, they then test the bath bomb for the property of density. They're going to do 2 tests. You're going to use the water bottles from lesson 2. You will put 10 bath bombs inside of water, shake it up. Remember, just like in lesson 2, you need to give time for the bath bomb to react. I typically set a timer for about 1 minute and 30 seconds and then have the students open the bottle. They begin by putting the flame above the bottle. They figure out that the flame does not extinguish. So the second part of the experiment is what you see in the picture down below. You will use a bread pan and a tea light. And the reason that we do this is because you put water in with the bath bomb. We don't want the students pouring the water on top of the tea light. So rather you have them gently dump the bottle over, not too much, right? To dump out the water and then give the bottle a squeeze. The gas will then come out and should put out the tea light. I suggest practicing this ahead of time so that you know how to best help your students. Again, once they're done testing the density of the gas from the bath bomb, you will ask the students to eliminate wrong answers. Again, let the students eliminate the ones they think are wrong. It is okay to be wrong right now. Let them put any and all ideas out there. In part 10, this is at the very end of day 2, we ask our students to construct a written argument about which gas or gases could be coming from the bath bomb, and this is considered their summative assessment. You may want to consider creating a gotta have it checklist with your students. The one pictured below here is a sample that came from my classroom. This is what my students said a complete response would need to include. We may want to consider providing multiple ways for our students to respond to the assessment. Maybe our students really like writing. Give it to them so that they can write. Possibly, maybe include having it typed for students who struggle with writing, or maybe they can use the text-to-speech function. Finally, you may want to consider providing sentence stems. The ones pictured here are the ones from lesson 2. You may need to change the very first sentence stem, but again, those sentence starters are already provided for you in the OpenSciEd materials. So, where do we go from here? Once the students have finished lesson 5, it's kind of like we figured out so much. So now how do we take what we've learned and apply it to something new? In lesson 6, they're going to take everything that they've learned from lessons 2 through 5 and apply it to one of the related phenomenon that they have on the related phenomenon board. Here are some materials management tips and tricks. The very first thing, I've talked briefly about this Some Common Gases data table. When you look at the density of air, it looks like it has a negative symbol. But we know that densities can't be negative. If you look very closely, it's actually a tilde, which means an about. And you might want to point this out with your students because that typically helps my students. On day 1, at the end of day 1, you ask the students to make predictions. And I have found that students sometimes struggle making these predictive explanations. So I know that in the OpenSciEd website materials, or on the OpenSciEd materials, there are 2 different forms that you can use. One is more open-ended, while the alternate provides more scaffolding. If your students are still struggling to complete the predictive explanation, because maybe this is the first time that they've done this before, you may want to consider doing one side as a class and having small groups complete the opposite side as a check-in. When testing the gases for both density and flammability, we want to get our students involved. Okay, the more students we get involved, the more invested they become in these demonstrations that we are doing. If you are struggling with the candle experiment that happens at the beginning of day 2, consider making it a demonstration so that all the kids can see the same thing happening. Or something else that I do is I'm able to reason with my students because we've learned in lesson 4 that the only substances that are causing bubbles to happen are the citric acid and baking soda. So I can say, do we really still need to use the bath bomb? And they say, no, let's just use the citric acid and baking soda. Because I know that by just using those 2 substances, the reaction will happen faster. And We are going to get more gas coming so that our tests will work. Finally, if flames are not allowed, try using the videos on the OpenSciEd website. In part 8 on day 2, I know that my students struggle to listen carefully to one another. The way the teacher guide is written, it asks for students to snap and clap as they are listening to each other talk. But again, that doesn't always work for me. A different strategy I have tried comes from the STEM Teaching Tools website. It is called a discussion diamond. The STEM Teaching Tools gives very clear guidance on how to do the discussion diamond. It's worked for me. It may work for you as well. Finally, are students still struggling with the written argument? You may consider providing students in the moment feedback. For example, as the students are walking around taking the test and you notice maybe they're only writing a little bit and you know that they could write more, ask prompting or probing questions to help them get to write more. A second suggestion that I've tried before is have the students switch papers and give each other feedback. In the picture shown on the screen, you will see some sentence stems to really help students give specific feedback. These sentence stems can be found in the OpenSciEd Teacher Handbook. Finally, if students are still struggling, consider having them put everything down and coming to a science circle to discuss the question prior to answering the question. Or if they're having struggles during the middle of the assessment, do it in the middle. It's not cheating, right? This is how scientists do things. We talk to each other and then we go back and write. Word wall management. Remember, we need to get 2 words on the word wall, density and flammability. All those gases are just words that we will encounter. Poster management. You need to be able to have the arguing for and against a claim poster that you built in lesson 2 out and able for the students to access and see, as you will refer to it in this lesson. And you will be adding 2 key model ideas to your key model idea poster. Finally, I want to thank you for listening to this. There are 3 things that I hope you take away from this whole video. 1, let the students be wrong. Remember, it's okay for them to have wrong answers, because in part on day 2, we're going to help our students to really listen carefully to each other. And 3, I really hope you make this lesson fun. I know I hammed this lesson up because I really love this lesson, and I hope you walk away loving this lesson too. And I hope to see you in lesson 6.